In modern geopolitical history, few American presidents have blended international diplomacy with business-style negotiation quite like Donald J. Trump. Throughout his presidency, Trump repeatedly emphasized the power of deal-making, an approach he had long cultivated as a real estate mogul and businessman. From trade agreements to foreign alliances, Trump's diplomatic strategy often echoed the logic of the boardroom: identify interests, leverage strengths, negotiate hard, and close the deal. Among the most debated examples of this approach are his peace-oriented agreements, most notably the Abraham Accords, a series of normalization agreements between Israel and several Arab nations, attempts at talks with North Korea, discussions with the Taliban, and economic-centric negotiations with NATO allies and other global partners. But were these peace agreements genuinely about conflict reduction and long-term stability? Or were they constructed, framed, and presented as business deals to enhance strategic leverage and reshape global alliances? In this extended video analysis, we will explore the structure, motivations, criticisms, and outcomes of Trump's peace-themed agreements, and question whether the line between diplomacy and business truly blurred under his administration. Before examining any specific agreement, it is important to understand Donald Trump's self-declared negotiation philosophy, a worldview shaped not by traditional diplomacy, but by decades in business. Trump frequently described the world as a competitive marketplace where every nation pursues its interests like a company protecting its assets. His speeches, books, and interviews reflect a consistent message. Countries make deals, great negotiators win, and weak negotiators lose. Traditional diplomacy, rich in historical nuance, long-term strategic planning, and multilateral consensus, was often dismissed by Trump as ineffective or outdated. Instead, he applied a transactional mindset. What does each side want? What leverage exists? What can be exchanged? How do we secure the best outcome immediately? This philosophy heavily influenced the agreements later branded as peace deals. The question is not whether this approach was right or wrong, but how it shaped the nature and perception of the agreements themselves. The Abraham Accords, signed between Israel and several Arab countries beginning in 2020, remain one of the most celebrated diplomatic achievements of the Trump administration. These agreements normalized relations between Israel and nations like the UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan, a historic development in a region long defined by conflict. But beneath the celebratory headlines, analysts noted something distinctive. The accords carried a strong economic foundation, functioning as a hybrid between political peace and commercial partnership. For the UAE and Israel, the accords opened pathways for investment, tourism, aviation, technology exchange, and security cooperation. For Morocco, the U.S. recognized its claim over Western Sahara, an incentive outside pure diplomacy. For Sudan, the U.S. removed it from the list of state sponsors of terrorism, enabling debt relief and greater access to international markets. Each normalization agreement involved either financial benefits, political concessions, or trade opportunities, mirroring the structure of strategic business deals. The Trump administration often presented diplomatic achievements the way corporations announce mergers and partnerships. Press conferences emphasized economic potential, job creation, and projected investments. While peace was certainly a theme, the rhetoric highlighted transactional wins. Billions in future investment. New trade corridors. Strategic partnerships. Mutual economic benefits. Critics argued that this framing signaled a shift from peace as a moral or humanitarian pursuit to peace as a commercial transaction. Supporters argued that economic ties create stronger, more durable peace by intertwining national interests. Regardless of perspective, the business-like structure of the accords is undeniable. Another prominent example of Trump's business-style diplomacy was his approach to NATO funding and allied financial commitments. Rather than traditional diplomatic persuasion, Trump publicly pressured nations to increase defense spending, comparing the alliance to a deal in which the U.S. was paying more than its fair share. His message was simple. If allies want U.S. protection, they must increase their contributions, much like stakeholders in a shared financial enterprise. Previous administrations framed NATO as a strategic partnership rooted in shared values. Trump, by contrast, framed it as a financial agreement where the U.S. was being taken advantage of. This approach resulted in several NATO members increasing their defense budgets, though debates continue regarding how much of that increase was directly due to his policy. The key point for our script is that peace and security were positioned as services tied to financial obligations, rather than mutual commitments shaped by long-term trust. The 2020 agreement between the Trump administration and the Taliban, aimed at withdrawing U.S. troops from Afghanistan, sparked controversy and debate. Once again, critics described the deal as transactional. The U.S. would withdraw, and the Taliban would commit to preventing terrorist groups from using Afghan territory. The structure resembled an exchange more than a traditional peace treaty. There were no guarantees of internal Afghan political rights, no comprehensive ceasefire, and no enforcement mechanism beyond the assumption that broken commitments would bring consequences. Supporters argued the deal was necessary to end a two-decade conflict. Critics argued it focused too narrowly on the exchange, troops out for promises, without deeper diplomatic groundwork. This mirrors the business-style negotiation model: identify the key asset being exchanged and close the deal, even if deeper systemic issues remain unresolved. Trump's direct engagement with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un was unprecedented. Never before had a sitting U.S. president met the North Korean leader face-to-face. But the meetings themselves resembled high-stakes negotiation events, publicized summits, bold statements, and symbolic gestures. Throughout these interactions, Trump repeatedly referenced his personal relationship with Kim, highlighting respect and mutual understanding, phrases reminiscent of business partnership building. The summits were heavy on symbolism but light on concrete agreements. No binding peace treaty was reached, no denuclearization steps finalized. Many analysts argued the meetings were more like opening negotiations than closing deals. In the business world, not every meeting ends with a contract. Likewise, Trump's North Korea efforts demonstrated his willingness to engage but also exposed the limits of deal-making when underlying political conditions remain unchanged. Donald Trump's peace agreements and diplomatic ventures remain a topic of intense debate. Some view them as innovative breakthroughs driven by economic logic, others regard them as incomplete, overly transactional, or insufficiently grounded in traditional diplomacy. What cannot be denied is that Trump reshaped the conversation around peace and negotiation. His business-style approach challenged decades of diplomatic norms and left an imprint on global politics that continues to spark discussion today. Whether one sees these agreements as peace-building achievements or as business deals masquerading as diplomacy, they reflect a moment in history where the negotiation table looked more like a boardroom, and where the pursuit of peace was intertwined with the pursuit of strategic advantage.